Hello, good day to all of you. I'm Xin Yi, partner in KPMG Malaysia. I lead the Financial Risk Management Advisory team, and I'm also the Fintech sector lead for KPMG in Malaysia. Firstly, thank you to SC for having us to present and participate in the SCxSC conference. We are excited to be part of this. And particularly in these times where we see many opportunities for growth in adoption of Rectech and Fintech for both financial and non-financial institutions. In this presentation, I'll discuss on the themes and direction of Rectech as we see it, and the challenges that adopters may be facing, and how these challenges can be addressed based on our experience. I will also share about KPMG's approach to supporting tech adopters and vendors as well. The ecosystem of regulatory management is made up of these 5 areas. This has not changed over the years. However, technology advancements, the need for speed, good management of regulatory change, monitoring and measurements have all led to the growth of technology in regulatory management, or Rectech, as we know it. We see regulators and governments adopting more Rectech and supervisory technology, SCxSC, to manage their functions, to better understand their clients. We see growing numbers of Rectech solution providers and consultants who are able to help regulated entities to improve on their regulatory management functions. We also see investors taking interest in this sector, mainly due to the increasing need for transparency, strong governance, and controls in regulated entities. This takes me to the next area, where we are able to see the increasing interest in Rectech investments. This is primarily driven by the increase in Rectech adoption and also growing maturity in Rectech firms. These growth stories are also responses of the market that addresses the needs of the industry in terms of customer loyalty, confidence and trust, stability, and of course, speed to market. In Southeast Asia, Rectech is still at its infancy stage. We see global solution providers dominating more of the Rectech space, with pockets of new innovators in solutions, and they address the business needs of frontline needs, such as eKYC, onboarding processes, and credit decisioning. Other areas relating to middle and back office Rectech are still fewer, but we do see a growing adoption of basic solutions to address immediate needs of the regulated entities. Some of the popular regulatory themes that we observe are in these areas, from reg compliance obligations, financial crime, conduct and consumer protection, risk management, both financial and non-financial, regulatory reporting, and tax reporting. Many of these themes are driven by the changing global regulatory landscape and also local jurisdictions' regulatory focus areas. Needless to say, events of the last 2 years has given rise to new risk areas, which would draw attention to areas such as cybersecurity, fraud, and third-party management. Given that the new norm has resulted in more digital transactions and activities around the world. So this results in new business models being deployed and many digital transformation efforts taking center stage in all industries. With these themes in mind, you can imagine that there are many areas for businesses and their operation functions to look at from a risk and compliance needs and from a regulatory management angle. Many regulated entities experience different challenges when considering Rectech adoption. Where do you start? Do you scan the market to begin with? Or do you first identify your needs? There are different ways to approach this, and we have worked on both of these bases before. And the takeaway is that this very much depends on the problem statement that you have. Regulated entities may have human capital capabilities challenges, as skill sets in regulatory matters may be short, particularly in this side of the world. Applying a Rectech lens to this, we also see how tech adoption will mean that additional technology skill sets is viewed favorably for regulated entities. This combination is not easy to find, and I'm speaking from experience. There are also cultural matters, as resistance to change is a common issue regulated entities face, particularly where the regulated entity is a large corporation with plenty of legacy processes and governance structures. The ability to identify use cases may also be a challenge if users are already accustomed to existing processes and operations. Why rock the boat if things are going well? The mindset change and ability to think beyond the current ways of operations is essential for regulated entities to reimagine how functions can benefit from technologies to support the growing regulatory management needs. And depending on the size and legacy of your company, integration to existing infrastructure and operations may also be a challenge as we grapple with new technologies, versions, speed to execution, and of course, skill sets required to implement and maintain the solutions. Of course, one of the major challenges that we see regulated entities face is cost. It's always the dollar sign. It's often difficult to justify the need for Rectech if nothing was broken, right? Management needs to look beyond the current practice and see what the future would mean with technology as an enabler for regulatory management. We're talking about time savings, resource efficiency resulting from improved controls, transparency, speed, accuracy. These will all be the future benefits to be gained from having Rectech. Aside to this, solution providers and vendors can also help entities manage these costs with new deployment models. You've seen platform as a service, solutions as a service. Essentially, these models can offer scaling price structures based on usage and transactions rather than fixed annual licensing fees and maintenance cost structures. This tremendously helps regulated entities to manage and plan for the costs, which will be commensurating with the business growth. Finally, another pain point we have observed in this side of the world, at least, relates to the support from the ecosystem, and namely the solution providers or the vendors. Despite us being globally connected and with technology, many companies still prefer the local presence and support of solution providers on the ground. We shall have to see if this situation remains or evolves in the coming months. This is a great phrase that I believe that technology adoption should be based on the firm's needs. That can be derived from your ambitions and your operating model. Very often we come across institutions that go for the complex or the sophisticated technologies, but later down the road after implementation, they find out that this cannot be maintained or that it is not fit for purpose, or there are many other modules and functions that were not being used. With this kind of experience, companies may shy away from adopting new tech or new solutions because there could be the assumption that it is all or nothing. These kind of issues can likely be better managed moving forward. And as I've mentioned previously, Rectech providers, as they become more flexible in their deployment models, regulated entities can better manage their expectations and usage of the solutions. As an advisory practice, KPMG has worked with clients in the regulatory advisory space across different themes. We support clients in these areas from ideation, the market needs validation, feasibility, business case development, design, and this is followed by prototyping, target operating model development, solution selections as well, and the subsequent integration and the ongoing managed services. So we are capable of conducting an end-to-end support for our clients. Our Rectech support would typically begin with a review piece of work. And with that review and the observations, there will be improvement points. and it would evolve into process enhancements, and later the design for the development, and basically finding a solution to address the problems. And we will support in the vendor search and even implementation, as well as the subsequent maintenance of those models or the systems if need be. So our latest projects where we see much need for these services and practically an end-to-end service would be relating to the support for expected credit loss model development and implementation and continued refinement and managing of the models and the systems. And this is mainly for financial institutions. We also see a need and many opportunities within the insurance contracting space, particularly IFRS 17 in addressing the needs for the insurance companies, where the end-to-end solution is also provided, and also regulatory compliance management, AML KYC solutioning. So in this space, compliance functions can benefit from Rectech by having the solutions assist in maintaining registers of regulations, in maintaining workflows, updates to manage regulatory change, keeping track and providing regulatory responses, things like that. So in many cases, KPMG works with solution providers, and in others, KPMG also develops in-house solutions. So this is more relevant where high customization may be relevant. And in terms of complexity, from very basic automation to workflow management, designing workflows, to machine learning models and artificial intelligence technology deployment. So it really depends on what the client needs and what is suitable for their effective use. Where we come in would be where we have the subject matter expertise in those particular areas, and we have methodologies that are proven across the globe, and we would have industry insights from our industry experts as well. And you can count on KPMG to provide you with that continuous support and contact to reach out to. Another very unique service that we have, this really excites and delivers demonstrable value, and it also saves time and it maximizes ROIs for many of our clients. So KPMG Matchy is a emerging technology sourcing tool for digital transformation and innovation. So it helps customers who have innovation and digital transformation at the top of their strategic with technology firms from around the world as well. To date, the portal has over 6,500 technology solutions, of which 10% of these are Rectech. We serve the landscape in two angles. The first is to help users to find the best fit solution. This would be your corporates, financial and non-financial institutions, to find the right technology provider. And the second is to ensure that there are sufficient supply. So we help the fintechs to reach out to relevant users as we grow our database of eligible and suitable fintechs that would have to meet certain criteria required by Matchy. I will spend the last few minutes of this session to talk through examples of how we support our client in resolving their issues by using Rectech. Okay. Model risk management is one of the hot topics in the financial institutions and financial services industry, as there is heavy and plenty of usage in terms of models. And one of the pain points would be that with this increasing number of models being used, that triggers the need for monitoring and digitization to enable the monitoring and the measurement of the effectiveness of these models, and also to be able to respond to regulatory queries and clarifications as and when they need. So model landscapes are becoming more complex, and they also invite lots of supervisory scrutiny as well because of this. And there would be lots of requirements in terms of by the business users in terms of automation and applying artificial intelligence into their models, as well as the model risk management. So KPMG is very well placed to help clients to to address their concerns in terms of addressing model risk management with supervisors and within their organizations. We have frameworks and we have obviously tools and methodologies, and we have best practice in terms of how do you test the validity of your models, how do you ensure continuity. We have all that, including diagnostic tools and toolkits, and we conduct surveys, so plenty of insights. The one thing that we wanted to extend would be to make sure that all these are practical and they are usable by clients, and therefore we work a lot with our solution providers, and we also develop solutions in-house as well to meet the client's needs when it comes to implementation via technology. So this particular Rectech piece of work would typically be an end-to-end process. Although it can also be taken in parts, right? And KPMG has seen through complete engagements around the world in terms of model risk management deployment, together with our solution provider, our preferred solution provider, as well as our internal solutions. On the topic of the interbank offering rate transition, which many of you may be aware of, with the phasing out of the LIBOR and the introduction of new alternative rates in different countries, this would mean that many corporates and many large financial institutions would need to relook at how they are managing the transactions and how are they managing the transitions. So what KPMG did was, based on our methodology and our framework, what we sought to solve was how do we simplify this process for our clients to update their contracts, to know what are the necessary transition steps to make within the company, from not just from an accounting perspective, but from a business perspective as well. So KPMG's Ignite and Appian collaboration sought to solve this problem, and it is an end-to-end solution. What it does is to automate contract management activities from the analysis stage to remediation. So it ingests various types of financial contracts from different sources, and it applies AI-based automation patterns to create intelligent workflows to solve business problems. So what we found was that this solution actually achieves better than human accuracy and efficiencies when it comes to looking at addressing your LIBOR and IBOR transition process. Finally, our last case study to share with you would be how Matchy has solved the problem of a very large global investment bank. And what the client wanted was to understand what is possible when it comes to corporate eKYC. So this goes back to the question that I asked earlier. Do you first scan the market, or do you first identify your needs? In this case, the clients knew what they wanted to address, but they wanted to also know what are the possible options out there and what is really available out there for them to move towards, right? And so you can see here the numbers speak. There were 300 over solutions in the database, and there were 70 technology solutions which were detailed out, and 16 solutions were approached to share the information to provide. And ultimately, the client was able to then identify what is the next thing that they need to design and to build before they proceed with their selection. So this kind of a case study or a use case would help the client to build their future model and future operating model. And with this database already in hand, they can also have a good view of what the future would look like. So what does that really mean when it comes to Rectech, and how do we build it? Firstly, we are looking at several themes that would be coming out to be more popular in the coming months and year. ESG is a very hot topic. There will be plenty of requirements coming out, and financial institutions and corporates will need to start looking at how do they comply with regulations, how do they collect the data, how do they report and provide the information not just to the public but to regulators and investors. So that's one area that's a really hot topic right now. Cybersecurity and fraud is really I suppose, accelerated because of the situation that we're in. And we're seeing a lot more demands for this because of all the digital transaction and the activities that everything is online right now. So the public and people are more susceptible to cybersecurity threats and fraud cases. How are financial institutions and corporations managing this? I think there will be a real need for the companies to come up with solutions or to implement solutions to help them address this. Compliance and reg management would be a hot topic because of the ever-changing, not ever-changing, but the changing and the new requirements that are coming out because of the changing landscape that we have, right? Regulatory reporting is also becoming a very important function and focus from a Rectech perspective. The more we are able to use technology to enable this, the more time we can spend on the analytical side of our reporting needs, rather than to be doing manual labor, information collation for regulatory reporting purposes. So this is essentially about moving up the value chain and having our teams and functions putting their time into more value-added activities. Now, and how can we look at adopting Rectech? So several key items that I've listed down here is to share that it is very important to start out by understanding what you need. So the institution needs to understand what functions need, what kind of problems are you trying to solve, and you need to engage with your stakeholders early. These first two steps is also very important for Rectech vendors and actually fintech vendors. You would potentially hear about how many solution providers may have a lot of solutions, but they don't necessarily meet the needs of the users, and it would be a wasted effort if we don't get into this process of discussion in the early stages. There's also the need for managing resources very effectively. Like we mentioned, it's not just about the project implementation, it is about the ongoing process as well. Do you have sufficient resources who are well skilled in not just the subject matter, but able to utilize technology effectively to deploy, to run the functions? And change management is a very important aspect when it comes to implementing new solutions and also changing mindsets as well. And how do you operate something in a different way, right, by using technology? Change management would help your people to move towards a different operating model. And when done effectively, minimal disruptions will be experienced. So these are some of the experience and sharing that I hope that has been beneficial for you in the last 20 over minutes. I look forward to see you at the panel and where we will talk more about Rectech adoption. Thank you very much. And thank you again, SC.